sailed away from Shroud Key, leaving the Exumas behind, and headed out across the Bahama Banks for our first big passage on our way back to Florida. On the way over going the opposite direction, this leg really beat us up with the wind straight on our nose and bashing into the seas. But what a difference with the wind behind us. The sailing was awesome with a gentle motion as we coasted along over the beautiful blue clear waters. Because the weather is so unpredictable and forecasts can rapidly change, we never decide for certain that we're leaving on a passage until the morning of. But the long-term weather forecasts we had been watching showed that we just might have perfect weather for passage making for a solid week, and we might make it all the way back to Florida in just a matter of days. As always though, we were prepared to stay in any anchorage as long as it took if the forecast changed and we needed to wait for another weather window. So we were taking it one passage at a time, and this one was going great. So we've been sailing now for about 9 hours. It's been a very nice passage so far. We've got 2 or 3 more hours to go to West Bay at New Providence. We're still just sailing pretty much dead downwind with just the head sail up. Probably averaged over 4 knots, but definitely not 5. Just a nice day. Beautiful water. Gotten our weather reports, and we think we're going to do that 24-25 hour sail all the way to Bimini starting tomorrow around 9 a.m. So we'll see. So we made it anchor down in West Bay, watching the beautiful sunset. Lindy's made us some fried rice, and we're going to get some good rest tonight. Journey to Bimini, and then we're just about 50 miles or less to the coast of Florida. Here's West Bay. We've been here before about 2 months ago, right in this same place. Beautiful place. So, how do you get weather when you're away from the U.S. and you're away from any internet connection? Well, we use a single sideband receiver. We're out here in the middle of nowhere, no internet, nothing coming on the VHF radio, but we've got our SSB receiver on, and Lindy is going to take down the weather. So that's how we get the weather. This should be a 114 nautical mile journey through the tongue of the ocean, through the Northwest Channel, over the Great Bahama Banks to Bimini. It should take us somewhere between 25 and 32 hours, depending on how fast we go. We're going pretty close to 5 or over 5 knots with the wind dead behind us and just the head sail up, just like yesterday. It's going pretty good. When the waves get us back and forth, the head sail gets some air behind it and pops a little, which, like that. That wasn't a bad one, so that's kind of annoying, but hopefully there won't be too much of it and we just scoot on across. Should be a pretty day. Another good sailing day, and then night, and then next morning, hopefully. You ready for this, Lindy?
Uh-huh.
You ready to be closer back to Florida?
Yes.
We were again experiencing great, comfortable sailing conditions through an area where we had really gotten beaten up bashing into the wind and wave on a previous occasion. The deep waters of the tongue of the ocean are a beautiful dark bluish purple, and the swell here is always a little bit larger with its exposure to the Atlantic. We went ahead and started taking turns on watch so we would stay well rested and alert for the night sailing ahead. So we've been underway now for 9 hours in the tongue of the ocean. It's been a beautiful sail, and we're approaching the Northwest Channel where we'll enter the Great Bahama Banks. And we plan to get here before nightfall because it can be kind of a funnel for ship traffic. We're all headed for the same point here. We got A sailboat just went through in front of us, another boat coming towards him, going by, and then a tanker over there. And we're all headed for this one little half-mile spot right up here. It's heavy traffic, but it's all good. We're just sailing along. So we've made it through the Northwest Channel. We're on the Great Bahama Banks now. Depth is 14 feet. It was a couple thousand feet out there. Now we'll just be sailing all night for an arrival midday tomorrow in Bimini. It's after midnight. We're sailing along nicely. Everything's going good. Got Lindy over here getting some rest while I'm on watch. And there's the moon on the water as we sail towards Bimini. It's 4:53, almost 5 a.m. Lindy's downstairs getting some sleep. I just got done with my rest. We're getting close to Bimini. I got some music playing to help keep me occupied. It's always an awesome sight to see the sky start to brighten and then the sun rise after sailing through darkness for hours. It turned out to be a beautiful, uneventful overnight sail with the winds just right for sailing. Since leaving Cambridge Key, we were now going on about 40 hours of constant sailing while only using the motor to get in and out of anchorages. I decided to go check on Lindy to see how the sleeping was going while she was off watch. Looks to me like she's getting the hang of this passage thing. It took us about exactly 24 hours and we've made it to the Bimini Sands Marina in Bimini. We got tied up to the floating docks. We're planning to just spend one night and then head on towards Florida tomorrow. Pretty tired, but I'm gonna fight through it and enjoy my day in Bimini. What about you, Lindy? Are you tired?
A little bit.
Are you gonna fight through it and enjoy your day in Bimini?
Heck yeah.
We left Bimini about 6 a.m. We're headed for the USA. We're giving one last listen to the weather. We see we may get some rain on the way across, a little squally weather. We're pushing forward. Here we go, across the Gulf Stream. We're sailing along. Winds are 10 to 14, just aft of our beam. The seas are fairly comfortable. They're coming aft of our beam, so there's no pounding into the waves. We just kind of, here's some of these, the larger swells like this, we just roll over them. It's not bad at all. And we've got the head sail reefed in some, just so it's extra comfortable. And we're hoping it just stays exactly like this all the way to Florida. How are you feeling, Lindy?
Good.
And for those of you guys that have been following along with us on the spot tracker, seeing the updates on Facebook, this is it right here. It's sending those tracking updates that you see on the map every 10 minutes if you're following on that link. And then when I push this button here, it gives the "we're okay" message that you see on Facebook. And then when we get anchored, I push that button there and it gives the "we're safely anchored" message. So you can see it's working right now. Thanks for following along. So this trip is roughly 10 hours long, and the Gulf Stream is pushing us 2 knots an hour north. So we're going to travel northward 20 miles, 20 nautical miles during the trip. It's pushing us north as we're traveling west. So we have to point 20 nautical miles south to end up where we want to be, if that makes sense. So we started here from Bimini. Here's Fort Lauderdale at Port Everglades here. And this is us right here now. Well, when we started from Bimini, we were actually pointing 20 miles south, which is just right around Miami. So the whole time, the Gulf Stream will be pushing us north towards Port Everglades. If we just can keep the same course to steer that started out being, government cut. But if you were to leave and just point straight at Port Everglades, where your destination is, you'd end up somewhere up here at Delray Beach. Also, continually just pointing at Port Everglades doesn't put you on a good path either. And as the stream pushed you north, you'd keep pointing at Port Everglades, and you'd eventually get up here somewhere pointing at Port Everglades, and you'd arrive there, but for a time you'd end up going into the Gulf Stream. So, that's navigation. All right, Lindy, compare your Gulf Stream crossing with how you felt 3 hours into the Gulf Stream crossing going east.
This is a lot better. The wind is coming from, that direction behind us, along with the seas.
The other direction.
The other direction, the wind was coming much closer to our nose, along with the seas. It was pretty rough. So, as long as we can avoid rain squalls that have 30 knots of wind in them, we'll be good.
That was the forecast.
Yeah, that's the forecast.
Squalls up to 30 knots, but very scattered and very small. So we're having a good crossing so far. Well, I just glanced up and noticed there's Fort Lauderdale. Land ho! Huh, the USA. It's been 2 months to the day, Lindy tells me, since we checked into the Bahamas. We're out of the Gulf Stream now, or the heavy current of the Gulf Stream anyways, and we're headed for Fort Lauderdale up here. So we made it in the cut into Fort Lauderdale. Now we're just motoring around. We're going to check out the mooring balls there. Definitely different than where we've been in the last couple of months. We were really excited to be back in the U.S., but it was strange to see all the large houses and boats and be in a big city back in Florida. So there was, all the mooring balls were available, so we grabbed one of those, and here we are. It's kind of a crazy place to be at a mooring ball. We're like right here in the middle of Fort Lauderdale. It was hard to believe that just 3 days earlier we had been in the Exumas. The kind of distances we'd covered can sometimes take weeks waiting for weather if you want to sail comfortably. Our 2 months in the Bahamas were awesome and we learned a lot, but now it was time to figure out what was the next adventure on holiday.